Good evening, this is Pine Leaf Needles, and welcome to LOTRO Players News, where we take a look at the latest news in LOTRO, and here at LOTRO Players. Tonight we have with us Andang,
Hey, everybody.
Frax Wolf,
Hello, everybody.
Etheros,
Hello.
Draculetta,
Happy Day of the Doctor Day to all my Hoobian friends.
and the ever-mysterious Mystery.
Hey there.
We got Mist back.
Yay!
Finally. It's taken so long. Like, how many weeks has it been? It's been a long time.
8? 9?
Probably.
Yeah. Well, I was here last week. I was just being a silent stalker.
Silent Stalker, yes. Very well. And of course, the big news this week all relates to the latest expansion for the Lord of the Rings Online, Helm's Deep. First of all, we had to wait 2 extra days because due to a power outage over at Turbine Data Centers, they had to push the release back to November 20th, which was 2 days after the 18th, the original scheduled date. Anyone have any comments on this?
Yeah, this wasn't just an issue of the supplier of turbine. 60% of Boston, I saw a report that 60% of Boston was actually without power. That is huge. And so it's actually kind of surprising that they got the power in the city all back up and got the servers up in the time that they did.
Yeah, there were some really bad storms all across the country that day. That wasn't just isolated to Boston. That was all over.
Yeah, it was a big issue.
Not a whole lot you can say. It was just incredibly bad luck.
Yeah.
I think maybe the only criticism I have is that this is the second time they've had a data center issue in the last couple months. And it wasn't, and you know, storms are one thing, but when your backup generator doesn't kick in at a data center, that's kind of a big deal, especially when your main source, your only source of income is over the internet. I'm thinking Turbine's probably looking at some data center alternatives at this point.
Let's hope so.
Yeah, we can hope so. We also, of course, because we had a new release, we had patch notes. Anyone have any favorites that they heard in the patch notes?
I have to refresh my memory.
Helm's Deep came out.
Yes, Helm's Deep came out.
That's my favorite.
Isn't that what it was all about? Helm's Deep.
Well, yeah, most of the patch note is referring to other threads in the forums that talk about changes. So.
Well, yes, there is that one. Of course, one of the real favorites is traveling rations are no longer required for all those skills that we have.
As a hunter, I'm all by that.
Yeah, and I'm a warden.
Yay.
As someone who bought a lifetime supply of traveling rations, my champion still has about 500 traveling rations right now. I'm not a fan of these changes for that reason. I made a long-term investment and they just got shattered.
You can sell them for 1/4 of the price that you bought them for.
Exactly.
You could wait to see how rare they get, because you won't be able to buy any more of them.
That's true. That is true. I might do that.
I know.
Look
I have
at this relic from
in the inventory somewhere.
So something that else in the patch notes that it seemed to catch people by surprise, I don't know if they didn't notice on beta or not, was the female hobbit walk animation change.
Well, I do know that it was in the beta patch notes because I saw them in, I believe it was the build 2 patch notes.
That seems to be kind of a big deal for some people, and I can see why they might be kind of concerned about that. So the female hobbit seems to be one that a lot of role players like to use, and I think they picked it because it was kind of a cute little character with a cute little walk, and now that's kind of been blown away in some folks' mind. And there's actually, I think, a forum post started to bring the old animation back, kind of a petition type of thing going on.
I believe the problem was that it had to do with shields on the clip. I didn't take a close look at the old animation to see what the exact problem was with the shields, and of course, being a warden, I should have Have
Might
plenty of
notice that.
experience with carrying shields around.
Yeah, I think this same kind of thing happened, I think, like 2 years ago when they changed the Hobbit run. And you can just see why they're so reluctant to change how characters act or move in that respect. It's
Yeah, that's a good point. At
whenever
the
they
roast,
change something, there's always a huge. Someone's gonna dislike it heavily.
The only exception had to be with the Walk of the Dwarves, where it was so begged for. I don't think anyone complained about it. They were complaining about what it was like before.
that came to. Sorry, Pine Leaf. There was
in fact,
Go ahead.
in fact, they once held a big, massive walk of the dwarves just to demonstrate how bad the walk was. That's how bad it was in those days.
Back to Ethelros's point.
Okay.
There was I think it was a developer chat or 20 questions maybe about a year ago where people asked about changing the character models. And I hear people complain about the character models all the time, but I think this is a good point. Their answer to that question was, well, we're really careful about people's characters because people get really attached to the way their characters look and act. So, like you said, Ethelros, this just exemplifies that point.
Considering
Anyway.
it is just walking, and most people don't walk, imagine what would happen if they changed, the full appearance, then that's something you're always going to be looking at.
Well, the role players do a lot of walking.
Well, yeah, mainly role players, but I mean, changing the appearance, everyone's going to deal with, and
Yeah. I think it's the run, too, in this case. But yeah,
Yeah, it
point
was
taken.
the run off because I remember because the run does look a little bit different because it
Hmm.
looks like that the arms are held out a little bit more than they were in the past, and I think that's because when they're held up close like they used to be, you would have the clipping with the shield because the reason was because it was unfriendly to shields is the reason they gave, if I remember correctly.
Hmm.
So anybody else have any favorites from the release notes?
Yeah,
Or
pretty
how
much
about-
everything I already knew about.
Right. And how about pet peeves?
The
Do this-
housing stuff is still
Expensive.
well, like we talked about
Expensive,
before.
yeah, it's a good way
it's
of
too
putting it.
expensive. Just to put that lightly,
Stupidly expensive.
absurdly expensive. Yeah.
All right, I think that's about as strong language as we could use on this show.
Guys, I've had bigger bets than the cost of housing and storage. Come on.
Okay, just because you have a couple of ill-advised bets.
And Athelros has like $1 million now, all of it endings, so he's doing fine.
Formerly
No,
endings.
No, Ethelos's was all converted into pounds.
Yeah.
Well, that was
comes
a
with
major
provisions.
waste. Think about how much money you lost on the exchange rate alone.
Yeah. I should move just to get better.
I mean,
mileage
gold
out of
is
it.
1 gold is much more valuable than 1 pound, I would imagine.
Oh, well. Let us head on to then. Naturally, soon after you have a major release, you have the major hotfix.
Yeah.
And therefore, we had a few hotfixes, so now we are on 12.01 due to a couple of things that were changed. Anyone have any comments? Probably not much to say because they're all to fix bugs that were in the original Helm's Deep release.
I get the feeling these were things that were fixed, but they didn't have time to actually put into the coding.
Well, yeah, more likely it was that they had the fixes done, but they didn't get all the way through QA, and there's a
Yeah.
point where you freeze the code, and you don't want to touch things because if you do, you blow things up.
Yeah, and it'll break a lot of stuff. And yeah, a lot of stuff goes out, known, but they don't want to try to fix it yet because it might break everything. So, yeah, it's very dangerous trying to fix stuff at last second. You definitely have to test through it all. But it was good that it fixed the major housing bug that would basically the black hole of housing storage. Not only did you pay extra for your housing storage, but then you got it all sucked into a black hole. So
Yeah,
talk about an
and
issue.
now now some people who heard about it quickly enough avoided using their chests until after the fix was done because any of the unique items that were lost are not going to be restored until 12.1. And 12.1, based on the number, will be at some point in December.
It's in a few weeks, according to Sapiens. It'll be
Well,
weeks.
that'll be in December
Yeah.
because traditionally that's the time because usually you have a release a month, and that's where Turbine tries to do it. So when you have a full point on it, it'll be the month after the expansion or major release on it. Now, they also posted known issues. And as usual, there were a couple of epic battle secondary quests that were off, but I know at least 2 of them are back. I think there might still be a couple of them that are still off, though, so they still need to work on getting those side quests all up and running. And we had a couple of things.
One thing they didn't even mention in the things that need fixed is the fact that I don't know what they did to my Defiler, but this was a huge issue on beta, and it's still an issue on live. But his animation, for whatever reason, every so often he'll have this weird little stutter in his animation, and depending on if you turn or not at that exact moment when that stutter happens, it can cause his animations to just go completely messed up for 30 seconds. And it's just the weirdest bug. You still move fine and everything, you can still play the game, but visually it just looks absolutely terrible. And so I hope that they fix this issue.
It is a creep issue, so as it pertains to Turbine, it's not a huge issue.
No, it's not, but they could at least put it in the patch notes when I mentioned it several times at each build in the beta, and then I still haven't put in a bug report on live, but I'm going to real soon because it's just a major issue.
Did they fix the issue where your skills don't save on your quick slot bar when you change?
Mine seem to be fine in that regard.
Some people have reported it, but I actually haven't had that issue. It seems to be on a player individual basis on who actually has the issue. I don't know if they've been fixed yet.
That'll be very difficult to fix if it depends on the player because they have to find something common with those players that will point to the issue.
It could take a long time for that to happen, and some players say that theirs will stay for like a few days, and then it hasn't been out for very long, but it'll stay for a few logins, and then it'll go and mess up again. So I don't know.
I think it might depend on how much changing the trait trees affects what skills you have, because for my Lawmaster, switching builds just gives me a couple skills, takes a couple away, and that's it. The vast majority of the skills are all the same.
Yeah, but that's how it's supposed to work.
For other classes, from what I've seen, have a lot of difference on whatever build you have.
Yeah, the champion skills, about half of them are different for each tree. So but I don't have that issue on my champion, so I don't know.
Yeah, I noticed it the first night I played, and then after that, it looked like it was fixed, and I thought, well, they didn't say anything about that in the patch, so that must just have been a fluke. And that was really one of the single biggest complaints the people in my kin were having with Helm's Deep the first night they logged in was, oh, this switching between builds is really cool, but if it's going to mess my skills up every time on my skill bar, I'm just not going to do it very much.
That was a big issue in the beta too, so hopefully they can or have gotten the hang of it either way.
Yeah, that's the problem. As I said, it seems to be inconsistent, and I know inconsistent errors are the toughest to fix since I'm a software developer. There was also, of course, since we had a launch trailer, and I think Andang is the expert about this wonderful piece of cinematography.
He is the trailer guy.
I don't know if you'd call it a wonderful piece of cinematography.
I was trying to be kind.
Yeah, well, I'm not. Um, I mean, it was a good trailer, but I feel like that they had better trailers earlier on than this one, and so I don't feel like that this was the trailer that should have been the launch trailer. I feel like the one that had Grima doing the narration, I think it was. I don't remember if it was for sure, but one of them had a really good narration and it went through like this whole story and everything. I think that should have been the launch trailer. But still, this was a good trailer. It was Turbine has been so much better with their trailers with this expansion than they have previous years, and so definitely as a whole for the trailers for Helm's Deep have been so much improved. And so whoever's doing the trailers over there deserves a lot of credit. But I feel like you could have done a little bit better with this one.
All right. Anyone else have any comments on the trailer? Then we'll go into store news. Yes, this week's free sample is a sturdy steel key. The code for this is LOOT6, L-O-O-T 6. And if you're someone who always gets loot boxes dropped but never gets keys, then you'll want this particular one. You just have to decide which character is going to get it.
Yeah, they should actually give like a lot of 5 keys as the freebie instead of 1, and then I might unlock half my chests I've got stored away.
Or you just trash them at this point.
No, because I've got so many different level characters, they'll come in handy for something, even if it's just throwing rubbish and what have you. But yeah, I want more keys. Give me it in a lot of 5, 10, 25.
Well, I don't hold your breath for that.
Oh, gee, shatter my dreams, why don't you?
Very well. We'll also have 30% off select cosmetics. Did anyone check to see what these select cosmetics are? Yeah, I didn't
Silence
think so.
says no.
Well, aren't they the ones you select?
There you go.
Select it, it's off.
Thank you, Mist.
Welcome, finally. If I
Yeah.
aim to help
Finally,
out.
if we just got her back on the show, you can't be negative to her. Come on.
We also have the sale on shared storage, cosmetic outfit slots, and Warsteed cosmetic slots. Is that really right?
Yeah, that's really right.
Okay, fine. Okay, because
But it's
someone
30% off, so while they aren't very interesting items, the Warsteed cosmetic slot's not that interesting, but at least it's 30% off. So
at least it's 30% off. All right, I was just making sure. And I think did I get anything this week? Nah, probably not. LOTRO Players News. Let's talk about LOTRO Players then. Let's get our first impressions on Helm's Deep. And Andang, we'll start with you.
why did I put myself first in the show?
Finally.
Now I know how y'all feel, man. It's terrible. I just said y'all. I'm Southern. Hey, everybody. All right, let's get this thing underway. Okay, so I've done about 3 hours in Helm's Deep or so. Having a ton of fun, but I think I'm probably bringing more fun myself than the expansion actually is. But it's still a fantastic expansion, and I love the way how right off the bat, while yes, you do have to go to Wildermore first, that's good because you get conclusion from the story that had no conclusion at the end of Wildermore. And so it was great to wrap things up real quick and then send us right on through, straight through, right into the heart of the story. And I'm not going to spoil what the heart of the story is, but let's just say that major plot events of the books happen right off the bat. We basically walk in on them, and literally. And so it's a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying it so far, and can't wait to see what they're going to do next. The zone design is definitely fantastic, and I love how the quests after that event actually take you throughout the city and really show off the city of Edoras and show how big the city actually is, because it's the largest city that is in LOTRO right now, I believe. And so it's definitely a cool thing. And now on to Ethelros.
No, thanks. I probably made my article a lot longer than it should have been. Basically, my thoughts are as I expected, the epic story is, as usual, great. They have a lot of the main book moments that you've read about in the books, but they also do a good job of making their own story within it. So, like a couple of lines they wrote about what Grima Wormtongue's been doing, and they managed to make a whole storyline out of that. I'm not going to go any more into it than that because spoilers, but that's the main thing. The landscape, as we did in the walkthrough video, we rode around all that, is the best looking expansion they've made yet by quite a wide margin. Epic battles are... I don't know how I feel about them at the moment. I like how you can do... there's so many opportunities to do different things in them. Like Engineer is my particular favorite. But there are a lot of bugs at launch that they're probably a lot more than they should have been, especially when it comes to the side objectives. And I think after being running them with other people, playing them on your own is kind of dull. Well, not dull, but I don't think I enjoy them as much as I do running skirmishes solo. The class changes are... I think it's at an okay state at the moment, but they're going to have to be right on with fine-tuning them over the next few months at least for the Lawmaster, because one line is kind of half there. So yeah, that's it.
All right, and real quick, Tart Assault on Google Plus and YouTube asks, are you sure, Andang, that Bree is not bigger than Edoras? And well, if you probably condensed Edoras and got rid of all the open fields and things, then it might actually be a smaller place than Bree. But Edoras is actually a really spread out city, and so it doesn't necessarily feel as if it's so big, but it is very spread out. And if you dismount and actually walk through, it takes forever. It takes much longer than Bree. So if you doubt me, dismount, walk through the city. I promise you, Edoras is much bigger.
You're watching YouTube? We're doing a show here, man.
I'm not watching YouTube. I got an email notification, Brax. So joke's on you. Not really, because that was terrible. Anyway.
Very well.
Hey, Pineleaf, before we move on, could I jump in real quick? So my first impression, really quick, was that my first impression of the expansion was, as Andang said, go to Willermore. So I don't have a real problem with that either. My biggest problem was we got a map to travel to the Entwash where we ended up the last part of the epic. But most of us were already sitting in Snowbourne. We could probably walk to the Entwash crossing.
I think what you were meant to do with that is go to Wildemore, talk to the person, and then when they send you back to the Entwash, then you use the map.
Oh yeah, that would have been perfect if I would have thought of that. The problem was I'd already used it by the time I got to Wildemore.
I think a lot of people had.
Well, the thing is, if you don't play this with the gap between the two expansions, and you play it just from ending in Wildemore, it'll go very seamlessly right into Helm's Deep, I think.
Yeah, that was my minor nitpick. My more major one, I think, is that I'm really having fun, and I ask myself that every time that after I log off, am I still having fun with this expansion? And I am. I'm enjoying learning the new parts of my classes and stuff. I'm a little concerned that it's still too easy, and that for the long term, that's going to be not good because I'm going to get bored with it quicker. I mean, we're running skirmishes with our kinship, and we are just tearing through tier 2s right now, and that never used to happen.
Yeah, the class changes have definitely made pretty much every class more powerful.
Well, I don't know, because
content.
I was getting ripped apart when I was going through a solo skirmish tier 1 with my Runekeeper the other day.
Oh, which one?
Thievery and Mischief.
Oh, really? We should join our kin,
it is a
finally.
Runekeeper. But I think,
Yeah,
can you imagine if they hadn't done these revamps, then epic battles will probably be almost impossible. With
Possibly,
how powerful classes are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And are you done with your overview, Brax, or you want to still keep going?
Yeah, pretty much. Just to kind of respond though to Ethelros, that's true. I've actually kind of made the decision, see if I can stick to it, that I don't want to do the epic battles until I get there in the epic story. So, to your point, I haven't actually tried to do an epic battle yet. So it's possible that the level of difficulty has been adjusted for those.
All right, and Drac, what are your first impressions of Helm's Deep?
I like the landscape. It's pretty. I still hate epic battles. Nothing has changed for me with that from beta. I'm sorry, I just can't get into them.
They've gotten a lot worse when they came to live.
Not a fan. Yeah.
Harder in a few of the side objectives, at least.
I am really enjoying the epic story so far. So yeah.
All right, and Pineleaf.
All right. I've been spending most of my time doing the quests in West Rohan, so I'm liking the storylines for that pretty much. Occasionally can be rather depressing on occasions, let's say. As you can expect when you're considering that, I believe it was even mentioned by Turbine, that this is the darkest day before the dawn, so to speak. So they make sure that you know it's the darkest day before the dawn. But I am enjoying the storyline so far, getting through there, meeting some people, some old familiar people, let's say, people I've seen in the books rather than people made up by Turbine.
Oh, so you're not talking about Sarah Oakhart?
No, I'm not talking about Sarah Oakhart.
If she shows up
God,
again,
just let
I
her lie
will
there.
just run to Mount Doom and jump in the lava. You heard it on this show first, and if Turbine brings it back just because of that comment on this episode, I will run into lava twice.
Don't flatter yourself.
Well, let me see. Well, Sarah Oakhart is unlikely to come up again considering anyone who's done Volume 1 should know the reason why.
Well, yeah, that's true, but she could come back in some way.
Well, I would say that someone having an image of Sarah Oakhart or something like that being used in order to needle you is a more likely thing. Right now, I have a feeling the more likely we're going to run to a certain Angmarim woman who has been annoying us the last couple of books.
Probably. But I think that's as close as we can get to spoilers as we want.
Right. Then, of course, I've run into a couple of skirmish bugs also. Well, I don't know if it's a bug or not, but the lack of reward bonuses for using the instance finder sort of was a bit of a surprise. And unfortunately, we all discovered that right when Turbine was going on the weekend, so I'm not too sure anyone who who would have an opportunity to comment on it has noticed it yet.
I think it's possible they might have done it intentionally to make people do epic battles more than skirmishes. But that's just a guess on my part.
Doubt that. I really doubt that. And if that is the case, then that's just that I don't even want to go down that road, to be honest.
Yeah. So we'll have to give Turbine the benefit of the doubt for the moment until we hear the reasoning behind it, so to speak.
Yep. And real quick, Mist, did you get into the expansion at all?
I'll let you know when the update finishes updating.
How do you like that loading screen, Mist?
Yeah. Next, can we move on? Because I've had a busy weekend, so mine's still sort of updating from the update they did so that we could all play Helm's Deep. And so when it updates next week or the week after, I'll let you know.
Very well. Any more first impressions before we go on? Very, very well then. Then I need to go back to the store sales because the reason that I was puzzled by it because it was indeed wrong. and therefore I did double check at it, and there was an error in there, and that shared storage is not on sale this week. It was on sale last week. What's on sale is shared wardrobe.
That makes sense.
Right, because that goes with all the cosmetic things, the cosmetic outfit slots and the select cosmetics, and the War Seed cosmetics, and also the other thing that's not mentioned in there is the mounted combat trait specs, which are also on sale. Now we'll go on to the next section, which is the Helm's Deep raid and six-man videos, and I believe that Andang had something to do with that.
Well, that is right. Finally, that's because I made the videos. So go figure.
Yeah.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, I know. Andang making videos. That's weird.
Yeah.
Especially beta
All right.
videos.
Yeah, that's even weirder. Alright, so yeah, I did go through, and I think one of them was a solo, and I think one of them was with Ethelros. Or actually, the six-man was with all four of us on beta, with myself, Ethelros, Pineleaf, Drac, and was Brax with us? I don't remember.
You guys never invited me.
We invited you, I promise you that.
No, I don't think I ever did a six-man with you guys.
Okay. Well, oh yeah, that's right, because we had Krell with us. That's right.
Yes, yes.
And so, yeah, so that was the fifth person. I knew there was a fifth person.
The only other thing I remember is that the dike was incredibly broken at that point.
Oh, yes, it was very, very broken at that point, and hopefully it's fixed more since then, because I haven't actually gotten into it to know for sure. But
Well,
I'm sure
there
that
is
they definitely
yes.
made some improvements.
There was a video put up by one of the YouTubers concerning doing a six-player run. I don't think they were very successful in it because it took them the video is only 30 minutes long. That seems a bit short for the dike.
Yep, and then we also had the raid video, where we did an 11-man, I believe, through the 12-man, so that was actually a lot of fun and very, very hectic. And most of the time we didn't really know necessarily what was going on, but we had a lot of fun. Sadly, I didn't think to record because I didn't think we'd do any better, but we actually had a very well-organized group right after that. And that raid, we were all using voice with each other, and we're very well organized, and everyone was extremely expensive and very deep in the engineering line. And so I think we got gold actually on the raid, so that was a fantastic one. I wish I had it recorded because it was a really fun playthrough.
I wonder how long it'll be before the first kinship gets platinum on the raid.
Ooh, I don't know. I'm interested to find out. I hope the first kin talks about it. I'm sure we'll hear in the coming weeks.
Or even platinum with the main objective and all side objectives they get during the raid.
Pineleaf, you're raising the bar really high. I mean,
Well, yes, but the big raid clans like to have high bars. That's what they live for, right?
I suppose so. So you all better get up there soon, or we're gonna come hunt you down.
Very well. Now, we also had a review of Rise of the Fellowship, which is a new, well, the movie's been in production for a while, so because I heard about this at least a year ago, I believe.
Yeah, it was back in episode 94 of CSTM, which was a year and a half ago, probably. And back then it was actually called the Fellows Hip,
yeah.
Rise of the Gamers. And basically what happened back then is I believe they were doing a Kickstarter or something very similar to a Kickstarter. And they were trying to raise money for this film to get it made. And they finally raised enough money to actually rebrand the film and start a huge marketing campaign and get tons of review copies out into the world. And we were lucky enough to get chosen for this movie, and it's now called Rise of the Fellowship. And I have to say it's a very good film. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I was surprised that it was less a LOTRO parody film than it was. Actually, it's a huge movie parody film that happens to involve LOTRO as well. And but there are some moments that'll definitely make you smile if you're a LOTRO player, and particularly if you're a PvP player in LOTRO. Um, there was a it's a really interesting plot because essentially it's the nationals for Lotro PvP, where they've had all these local PvP tournaments, and then they go to the big national tournament, and it's about the journey of the players to get to that tournament and actually compete in it. And
Yeah.
it's a very entertaining film, mostly just because of the parodies. If it wasn't for the number of parodies that it does of the films and game, I don't know if it would actually be that interesting of a film. But
I'm, Now, of course, I've never heard of an actual Nationals PvP championship for Lotro, but that's another matter.
well, that's kind of why I like this, because I actually like the idea of a whole national championship for PvP. It just sounds really cool. And they did a great job of showing how that might look, and it's really a cool thing to see an entire audience of people get really into Lotro PvP as a PvP guy, I have to say, and just have an entire audience, an entire film that talks a lot about Lotro is a really cool thing. And Turbine actually let them, they actually gave them the dev characters, and so that's how they got really good shots in the film of Lotro, because they could actually pick wherever they wanted to be in the game world at any angle from the sky or down below. And so there's some shots that you won't be able to get at all unless you're a developer or see it in this film.
Very well. Thank you then. Now, Brax. What is this Brax Clan thing?
Well, that's a new thing. I talked about this a little bit when I was on my guest spot on MMO Reporter that I won from the Fellowship Walk last week. And what it is a video series that I was trying out, and it was kind of conceptualized out of a couple things. One time I was on a Skype call with you guys. I think we were doing a beta event or something, and my son was sitting next to me also playing Lotro on live. And he's the type of kid that narrates his entire play session. He talks the whole time he's playing. And you guys, I think Andang was the one who could hear him over my Skype session, and he started telling me about how fun it was to hear him talk about his gameplay. And I took that, and then I looked at some of the stuff that Lilikate has done on our site with her small Lotro adventures, where she takes Lizzie around and plays Lotro with her. And I thought, well, maybe I can combine these ideas a little bit and come up with a video series where I play Lotro alongside my two oldest sons. I kind of rotate them so I don't have all three of us going at the same time. I don't think I have enough computers to make that work. But so basically, it's a video series where they're playing Lotro through for the first time. They're getting close to level 20. They've never seen the content before, so I thought it would be fun to kind of capture their reactions as they're going through the content for the first time and learning how to play, and see kind of go back in time to where, when we all started out and didn't know how everything worked and the ins and outs and everything. And we decided to call it the Brax Clan because it's the Brax family doing this Lotro gaming together.
Very well.
I do have to say, I really love this series. I really do. It's an awesome series. Great job, Brax.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
Very well. Now, that, of course, as you said, brought you back into Middle Earth. You talked about your first article also in a flashback. What's that all about?
Yeah, this was a post that I did this week, and I think it was partially inspired by watching the boys play, and it was also partially because the expansion was coming out and things were changing so much that I was starting to think back to what it was like when I first started playing. And it struck me that I remembered the day that after I rolled my first tune in Lotro, I had actually written a blog post about doing it on my personal blog almost 3 years ago. So I went back to read that post again, and I thought, it's really fun to see the mindset that I had back then how everything was new, and I wasn't so entrenched in all of this stuff that comes along with the game, and I was just trying it out for the first time, and I was just going out and shooting boars and wolves and things, and I thought, you know what, this is interesting enough that I think some other people might like to read this and also reminisce about when they first started playing, because it's, like I said, almost 3 years ago. It's a lot of time has gone by since then, and a lot of things have changed, and it's just fun to look back and be kind of nostalgic.
Very well.
I would like to point out real quick that a Zinger in the chat says, "Gotta love the Braxwoods."
Yes.
Oh,
So
okay.
I have to say, we have a great chat room tonight. We have, I think, like 6 or 7 people in the chat. So thank you all for joining us. That's awesome.
I wonder if they would give tips if we went busking for them. And speaking of busking,
That was a
Yeah,
really
speaking
weird.
of busking, would like to ask the chat
transition.
room who has actually heard of the word basking. Was it busking before? Because I have never
well,
heard
they
of it.
say yeah.
I have.
Yes, we've established that.
We've established that yet.
I
Lillicate
don't-
has, we hope.
We hope that she has.
She wrote the article.
in question, yes. And that's because Lily Kate wrote an article called Buskin' in Brie Bonanza. And the idea of a day of busking at the Prancing Pony in Breetown on Langeville, or actually if people want to do it on other servers also, fine with them. It's just that you'd obviously the different set of musicians on each server, obviously. And the idea is to have a band playing there for tips for in front of the pony.
Yeah, I think it's a really cool idea. Definitely something that I'd be interested in observing and possibly tipping, especially if Ethelros gives me back some of my money.
Yeah, don't count on that happening.
This is one of those things that they've been doing a lot of on Landerville to try and promote new bands and new artists that are coming out, because I know that there's some that are firmly entrenched there, and they draw a lot of people to their shows. And there's been some talk about, well, it's very tough to get anything going on that server where a lot of the interest is for RP and things like that. So this is one of the things that I think Lillicate has taken up to try and help those that would like to start to get a foot in the door in that scene.
Right. And they're the ones who probably still need the tips because they don't go to those they don't have the major concerts yet. You're right. And of course, an unexpected vidcast reaches episode 20.
Yeah, it's been great to watch this podcast grow, and I'm very excited to see it at episode 20, and hopefully they will continue going for a lot longer.
Yes, and they managed to get in 4, preparing for Helm's Deep, but getting 4 Hobbit poems. They're all limericks, so therefore rather short Hobbit poems, and a brief history of Eregion.
Yeah, those poems were fun.
Yes. And let's see. And Brax, you were talking about the average LOTRO player. What is that all about?
This is my pick of the week. I meandered on over to Contains Moderate Peril, where our friend Roger Edwards wrote a really cool article about the average LOTRO player. And so what do you guys think of when you hear that title? What is an average LOTRO player?
Braxwood is probably an average LOTRO player.
Probably so. Yeah, I would agree with that. So the premise of this article was, we hear a lot on the forums, both official and unofficial, a lot of complaints and a lot of a very vocal subsection of the player base, the player population. And Roger he's taken his own experience. He hasn't done any actual studies or anything on this, but he's taken his own experience with visiting the forums versus the interactions that he has in game with people that he knows or kinmates or things like that. And he's saying, I think that there's a very passionate fan base out there that spends time in the forums, But I also think there's a very much larger section of the player-based population that is not vocal and is actually very content with what's going on in the game. And that's probably the reason that the game continues, because no matter what happens, these folks that are content are going to continue to spend money in the store, buy the expansions and whatnot, because it's Middle Earth. And it's the way they have fun is not the same way that the folks in the forums have fun with the game, necessarily. So I just thought it was an interesting kind of take on that, because what we're exposed to on this show a lot, and doing the news and interacting with some of the very passionate fans, might not be representative of your average LOTRO player, and that's the point that he's trying to get across.
Yeah, I think I've always thought, honestly, that the people on CSTM, even back when that was the big LOTRO, if you like LOTRO at all, that's where you go. Even their audience really wasn't that much of a sample of the real LOTRO audience, and they just want to be in Middle Earth for the most part. Now, it's not all that way, but I think for the most part that he's definitely hitting on something that I think, from my experience, is pretty true.
It would explain why they don't seem to be as bothered by certain contentious changes, is that they don't play the game for an MMO. They play it because it's Lord of the Rings. And the aspect of Lord of the Rings that Turbine has been doing has, well, in my opinion at least, been as good, if not better, as it has been before.
Very well. This week we had a donation from Anonymous. So let's give a big thanks to Anonymous for sending us this donation. If you would like a mention in LOTRO Players, just go to the LOTRO Players donation and hit to the donations page, where you can help support the podcast of LOTRO Players and also help support the site. We have $5 and $10 mentions where you could donate and get a mention on one or all of our active podcasts for an episode, depending on the amount. For $5, you could get a mention on one. For $10 or more, you can get a mention on all of the podcasts that we currently have active.
Yeah, definitely a big thanks to the person who wanted to remain secret for their anonymous donation. That's fantastic.
Yes, and we do not have any reviews this week. We are still waiting to get some.
Yes, please give us a review. All we have is Brax Fans review. Not that that's a bad thing, but surely there are other fans that want to give reviews on iTunes.
Nope,
Please.
nope, just Brax Fans, that's all.
Yes, and speaking of Brax Fans, for our featured comment this week is by Rhonda Gildaran, who left a comment on last week's LOTRO Players news on YouTube saying, "You got Brax's name right today!"
It's cause for a party.
Yeah, apparently that was cause for a celebration.
That was directed at you, Pine Leaf, by the way.
I am assuming that was the case, yes. And for the emails, we did not have any emails, but if you'd like to send us some emails, we will read it on the show unless we get 6,000 of them and don't have time.
We'll still have Pine Leaf read through them all.
You can contact us through lotroplayers.mymiddleearth@gmail.com. You can also follow us at Twitter, LOTROPlayers @LOTROPlayers, Andang @PVMP_Andang, Braxwolf @Braxwolf,
Yay!
Draculetta @Draculetta_72, Etheros @Etheros, Mystery @Mystery XOX. I'm not sure how you pronounce
Hugs
that.
and kisses.
Mystery Hugs and Kisses.
Well, it's actually Kiss Hug Kiss, but
Yeah, I guess it is Kiss Hug Kiss, yes.
Just think of me as French without the accent.
Well, you got an accent, all right.
No, everyone else in the world has an accent. I don't.
Yes.
And you I was just about to say, you left off your Twitter account, Pine Leaf. And that would be Pine Leaf at Get a Twitter.
All caps. Now remember that this is a disclaimer. It may or may not be PineLeaf's actual Twitter account, and so we cannot be held responsible for anything that may or may not come from that Twitter account. But you should follow it anyway because it's probably PineLeaf.
LOTRO Players News goes live every Saturday at 8:30 p.m. server time, which is United States Eastern Time. You can join us by going to lotroplayers.com/live and be sure to join us on the chat. That's it for tonight. And until next time, this is Pine Leaf Needles, and remember to skirmish responsibly.
Zinger says he's preparing an 8,000-line sonnet for PineLeaf.
Right, do
But
that.
a sonnet only has 14 lines in it by definition.
You'll have to read it out, Pine Leaf.
This is going to go next to those red emeralds, right? Good night.